Can you talk about why you invented the web?
I invented the web just because I needed it, really, because it was so frustrating that it didn't exist. There I was at an exciting environment, people coming from different countries, people coming from different universities, working for different people, and because they didn't all work for the same company, they weren't all told to buy the same software and buy the same computer. So they came with different sorts of computer, different sorts of software, so their documentation was all in different systems. So when I wanted to do my job, I'd have to build a program that would make this talk to that, and I'd have to go and find out how this worked, and find out how that worked, and then how the infrastructure worked. Those would all be on different computers. The human nature that I came across from the early web developers, it was very open, very giving, people very much working together, encouraging each other, very much full of excitement, getting a kick out of making things work, and very much out of making things work together. Certainly, the fact that the web breaks down the geographic boundaries is really interesting, and it's not clear that the effect of that has at all really come to full fruition. We've seen, yes, people will chat to people in other countries. They find it difficult to do that across time zones, maybe, but certainly there are strong communities which are international, but still, a lot of things are still geographical.
China is a sick country. The terminology coined by Facebook IPO paper 5. He said the sick country means Syria, Iran, China, and North Korea. The 4 countries have no access to Facebook. In the north, there was a great war, Changcheng. It protected China from invaders for 2,000 years. But China also have a Great Firewall. That's the biggest digital boundary in the whole world. It's not only to defend Chinese regime from the overseas, from the universal value, but also prevent Chinese own citizens to access the global free internet, and even separate themselves into blocks, not united. So basically, internet has 2 internets. One is the internet. The other is the Chinanet. In China, we have 500 million internet users. That's the biggest population of netizen internet users in the whole world. So even Chinese is a totally censored internet, but still Chinese internet society is really booming. How make it? It's simple. You have Google, we have Baidu. You have Twitter, we have Weibo. You have Facebook, we have Renren. You have YouTube, we have Youku and Tudou. Chinese government blocked every single international Web 2.0 services, and we Chinese copycat everyone. So that's kind of the thing I call the smart censorship. So that's not only to censor you. Sometimes that's Chinese national internet policy is very simple. Block and clone. On the one hand, he wants to satisfy people's need of social network, which is very important because people really love social networking. But on the other hand, they want to keep the server in Beijing so they can access the data anytime they want. That's also the reason Google was pulled out from China, because they can't accept the fact Chinese government want to keep the server. It's so hard to post some sensitive words in the Chinese Weibo. For example, you can't post the name of the president, Hu Jintao, and also you can't post the city of Chongqing, the name. And until recently, you can't search the surname of top leaders.
China's internet censorship is very pervasive, sophisticated, and actually technologically advanced. When we're talking about is a multi-layer from the central level to every provincial level, the internet control system. There are over 60 laws and regulations regarding to the online contents and information flow, with a very vague language such as subversive information, endangering state security, without any detailed definition, and that any information or any online activity can be put into that category. And then China has an entire new police division called Internet Police, which is now based on every single police station as long as there's an internet connection to that region. From the central level all the way down to provincial level and to the city level. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of the personnel. And then the all parties propaganda system, again, are working on controlling the internet censorship. The whole party's propaganda system are working on controlling the online messages. They have surveillance teams, they have monitoring teams, and they monitoring the online contents from blogs to forums, from news portals to social networking sites, real time, and with the support of the best technology, sort of data mining, surveillance, sniff packing, and many other sort of advanced technology to help them to go through the information to find out who did it and what kind of information they want to filter. What's most important is they put this burden of censorship to all the internet companies, whether you are Google or Yahoo or those internet giants, or you are a small startup trying to host some blogs or starting a new tweet-like microblogging services. You all have to censor your information or users' information as long as they're on your server. So they all have to hire personnel or provide technologies to do the censorship, sort of to fit the instruction of censorship orders. And that being said, the biggest piece of the internet censorship is not just by police, it's not just by the internet content providers and service providers, it's also at the national gateway, what we call the Great Firewall. And that is a layer of technological defense to prevent the Chinese internet users to access all these what the government called undesirable information from the foreign sites. They block and overblock hundreds of thousands and millions of sites, and they constantly update their keywords filtering, the URL addresses, the IP addresses, and sometimes they even maliciously attacking the foreign websites if they do not like what they are saying about China.
The Chinese are very good at this puns and alternative wording and even memes. They even themselves, use the name of this word-changing battle between the grass-mud horse and the river crab. Grass-mud horse is 操你马. It's the phonograph for motherfucker. It's netizen call themselves. River crab is 和谐. It's the phonogram for harmonization for censorship. So that's kind of a 操你马 versus the 和谐. That's very good. When some very political, exciting moment happened, you can see on the Weibo, you see a lot of very weird stories happened, weird phrases and words. Even you have a PhD of Chinese language, you can't understand them.
Regarding to internet censorship, there are several of those China's unique phenomena. One is called 50 cents blogger or 50 cents party. What it is the government has paid, trained those what they call internet commentators, which is essentially some government-paid people that go online to spin the online opinion or expressing the messages, giving the messages of government saying, but without their real identity. They pretend to be the ordinary netizens. but they are there in government term, quote, quote, influencing the public opinion. But there are so many of them in a different level. Different government agencies hire them for their own PR purposes, and they all together get a nickname by Chinese netizens, 50 cents bloggers. It's making fun of each of them working so hard that each of their posts only worth 50 cents. The people who are familiar with the Chinese internet politics can tell a lot of those contents are simply coming from those 50 cents bloggers. But if you are just doing a computer survey, you wouldn't tell what is the real public opinion online. Chinese internet is not a real free space. It's still heavily policed. However, it's much freer than what you can say and what you can hear on the official media. Now what we see is the internet actually driving the media agenda about covering events, particularly on the issue of social justice. Government used to have the complete control of the information, but now internet breaks that. The one good example is 2008. The China's Sichuan region had a enormous earthquake. 80,000 people died. In such a tragedy, there is a particular tragedy that has a human factor to it. There are thousands, almost 10,000 of the children, school children died because almost all the major school buildings collapsed during the earthquake. It's not that the earthquake is that strong, they wiped out every building. Most of the public buildings, particularly government buildings, stands fine because they just simply had a better quality in their construction. And why all the public schools that being constructed so badly? What was the reason behind it? Not exceptional cases, but many of them, and cost thousands and thousands of Chinese children's life. And that is a question. If we dig into it, we'll find some very deep-rooted corruption in the Sichuan province, but probably nationwide. Therefore, the Chinese authority issued a censorship order for no Chinese media could cover this issue. They don't want the media to dig deeper than it becoming a systematic problem of the government. In the case of no official media can investigate the school collapse issue, many bloggers picked up that as their calling. Particularly, there's one Chinese artist, Ai Weiwei, who is also a very known blogger. He bravely started a project of compiling all the names of the dead children of the school collapse, putting on his blogs. I mean, he has his research assistant doing that, and then his action inspired hundreds of volunteers that actually went to the earthquake region, did the investigation, and compiling those children's names on their blogs. And that action alone generated a national sort of attention on this issue, even defying all the censorship that taking down some of the blogs, closing down his writings. However, there is hundreds and thousands of other volunteers are keep on putting those information online, eventually driving this agenda back to the national media. And even the Chinese national newspaper has run a front page editorial sort of recognize this is the issue of human rights, that Chinese government must do something to it. So this is one good example of the online activism actually can sort of do something even when the official media cannot do it.
Well, the web naturally, as a technology, tends to lead to openness. It makes openness easy and closedness more difficult. So one of the nice things has been where we've seen that countries that tend to be rather closed and where information flow was not very good have used the internet, in fact, to open up. It's unfortunate when we find a country where there has been a very strong clampdown. My feeling is that there is, maybe independent of the internet, an inexorable movement towards openness. That as people learn more about other countries, as people learn more about the world, then they demand more, they connect more, and they push back against the borders. And once you've allowed openness, it's very difficult to push it back. So I hope that there will be a general move towards openness, and each country, bit by bit, will become open and when it comes to information, and therefore become a better base for an informed electorate and an informed democracy.
There is not only in China but also in the United States, there are some very small, cute but bad cats. Sopa, Pipa, Acta, TPP, and ITU. And also, like Facebook and the Google, they claim they are friends of the mouse. But sometimes we see them dating with the cats. So my conclusion is very simple. We Chinese fight for our freedom. You just watch your bad cats. Don't let them to hook with the Chinese cats. Only in this, in the future, we will achieve the dreams of the mouse, that we can tweet anytime, anywhere, without fear.